everyone, and welcome to Ctrl Alt Craft. Rose with you, and today we have a craft video, yay! They are few and far between, like I always say, but like I always say, they're a lot harder to make, and so yeah, that's my excuse. I am absolutely exhausted. I've had a huge week. I've had 6 days of just non-stop work or sewing or conventions or friends. Oh, there's Paisley in the shot, my cat Paisley. But yeah, so it's just been a bit hectic and I'm just exhausted, and I wasn't even going to do the voiceover today, but then I realized actually today's kind of the perfect day to do it and just get it out of the way. So that's why you have a craft video today. So I'm going to hopefully intersperse some helpful crafting hints in amongst the time lapse. Again, it's not so much a tutorial as it is just a time lapse with some handy hints. I don't have the setup to be able to do like a full-on tutorial. It's a goal, one day I'd like to, but for now it'll just be, yeah, me sort of interspersing little tips and tricks in the hopes that it helps you with your own crafting. So yeah, the first thing I wanted to talk about was cutting fabrics the right and wrong side. Now, I don't actually know how to determine the right or wrong side on a bit of fabric that is all one color. Like this fabric here, this is the cheapest and nastiest stuff I could find at the local craft store, and I just used it for a costume, so it wasn't too important for me to get it right, but there is a right and wrong side to fabric, and it's something you should look into, especially if you're making something a bit nicer or a bit more important. So keep that in mind. The circle skirt is interesting. I have instructions for that down below. There's actually a link to, I think they're called Friskers. I think that's how you pronounce them. They're a craft brand. They make like cutting implements and stuff for crafting, and they have a tutorial on how to make a circle skirt, and it's the one I always use, and it has never failed me. So I used their tutorial for the circle skirt, but instead of creating the circle skirt in quarters, I did it in halves, and well, not so much halves, I did it in a half, and then I did it in 1/3 and then 1/3, because I wanted different panels of the circle skirt. But yes, if you're looking for a great circle skirt tutorial, I highly recommend the one down in the description box below. It's super easy to do, and it makes just a really pretty skirt. I make my skirts a little bit bigger, so the instructions already say, you know, add an inch around the waist, but I actually make mine even bigger than that still because I like to gather my skirts and just have really big, puffy, frilly skirts. And I'll talk a bit more about that later. But yes, so always make sure that you're cutting with the scissors on the right side of the pattern on the fabric as well. There is a right and a wrong side, which again you should look into, because otherwise you're just likely to make some more mistakes. So always make sure you know what you're doing with your scissors, because once you cut something, you can't go back. You can't fix it. It doesn't look the same and all that sort of thing. So you have to be really careful with that kind of stuff as well. Now we're onto the overlocking. Now overlocking is another dangerous and tricky area for the same reason, that overlocking, the machine actually cuts the fabric while it sews around the edge of the fabric to stop that edge from fraying. So if you cut and you don't know what you're doing with this, like you don't know what you're doing with this pattern in this machine, and you put it through the overlocker and it cuts the wrong way, or it sews the wrong way, then you're kind of screwed. I always recommend before overlocking and sewing that you take a piece of scrap fabric from the fabric that you're working with, and put it through the machine just to make sure that it's on the right settings. Especially with overlocking, that is so important because you can't undo it. Sewing, you can sometimes undo it. Overlocking, you absolutely cannot undo it. So make sure you get that right. Practice, practice, practice on a scrap bit of fabric first. Make sure you always do that. Oh, well, I hope those were some handy hints. That's about 3 minutes of handy hints for you. I do have some other points that I'd like to try and just sort of fill in the gaps if I can get around to it. So we'll see how we go. I did make this costume. This is a D.Va costume for a cosplay for a convention I went to yesterday, actually. And I have a cosplay already. It's a Legend of Zelda Link cosplay. It's like a green dress with a green elf hat, and I've got the elf ears that I glue onto my real ears and all that kind of stuff. And I just went, you know what, I really want to try and change things up a bit. What other character do I love? Well, I love D.Va. D.Va is a character in a game called Overwatch, which is like a first-person shooter. You play in teams and you play online, you verse other people. And the idea is that you get to pick out of a bunch of characters that have different weapons, different styles of fighting, and so you can use different tactics in battle to win the battle, kind of thing. D.Va is a tank character, and she is from her character. She's from South Korea. She's a video gamer herself. She's just really cool, and I love her so much. And as you can see in the background there, I even have a little D.Va pop vinyl. I have quite a few D.Va pop vinyls. I have a lot of D.Va merchandise. And you'll see some of that pop up at the end with the rest of the costume, but some of it you won't. But I do have a lot of D.Va merchandise. I think it's really cool. She's a really cool character. So yes, I went to the Supernova convention yesterday with some mates of mine, and it was a good time. Supernova's always kind of an convention. Like, it's not fantastic, but it's not terrible. Usually it's just a good excuse to go hang with some friends, get dressed up, meet other people that like dressing up, and get photos together. It's kind of like the whole reason I go anyway. So yeah. What else did I want to talk about? I might talk about basting stitches. So basting stitches are stitches that you put them in, but they're not designed to, I guess, stay there permanently. You're not putting them there as a permanent fixture, you're putting them there temporarily. They're great to hold certain things in place. So if you have something you want to hold in place, but you're not sure quite how it's going to look, you might do a basting stitch. I use them for two things. I use them for gathering, which you can see here. At the moment, I am pulling some strings in the top of the skirt to gather it because I made it bigger so that I could gather it and have a nice gathering effect coming out from the waist of the skirt. I will try and describe to you with my words, very poorly, how you would do that. So the way it works for a skirt is that you start at one end of the top of the skirt, the waistband of the skirt. You do not go back and forth to begin with. You know, when you sew, you go back and forth at the beginning to try and keep the stitches in place. You don't want to do that. You just put it in the machine and you just start sewing. You sew in a straight line all the way to the end. And then you stop. You turn the project 90 degrees and do one single stitch down. Then you turn the project 90 degrees again and you stitch all the way back along below and parallel to the line you just made. All the way till you get to the end, and then you cut. You make sure you leave a long tail at the end of cotton, and then once you've done that, you just pull the cotton. It'll gather, and you just sort of have to, I don't know, use your fingers to manipulate the gathering to make sure it's sitting where you want it to sit. And then you have yourself a gathered skirt. I actually learnt how to do that from a Singer sewing book. I highly recommend Singer sewing books. They've got some great tutorials in there. I also use basting stitches for zippers, which you'll see here. I am sewing up the side of a skirt and of the bodice, and now I'm about to insert the zip. So if you sew first the seam that you want to have a zip in, and then you sort of pin the zip in along the seam, and then sew it in place, and then you unpick the seam stitch, the basting stitch, you have a zipper that's perfectly sewn to the dress, and it's sort of hidden between the two pieces of fabric and within the seam. It's the best way to create a hidden zipper. I'm not perfect at zippers. I find them quite tricky, and you know, these sorts of things will probably come with experience. I do not claim to be a super experienced or knowledgeable person when it comes to sewing. I am a 20-something-year-old woman who's done it only for a few years now, but you know, maybe if I'm still making videos in my 60s or my 80s, you'll see professionalism. But for now, it's just a chick trying to throw together a costume really quickly, so that's what you get. The other thing that's really tricky, and again also comes with experience, is lining up the panels of a skirt to match a bodice. And you'll see in some of the photos that I'm a little bit out. in some of my trying to align certain panels, but overall I'm actually pretty proud of it. I think I made a decent effort with this costume. And the costume itself I was actually really happy with. The whole day I just felt super cool. Here I am sketching the outline for the embroidery, which I did not film because I didn't have my tripod. I had to lend it to another friend. And one day maybe I'll do a embroidery tutorial for you separately, so you can see the process behind it. But here we are at the end of the video, and I didn't say all the things I wanted to say, but that's okay. I'm just glad I could fill in the time and not fall asleep partway through the video. So here's some shots of the dress on the dummy, ready to go. And then here's some shots on the day. My friend took some photos of me. Shout out to Jordan for being epic with a camera. And here's some other amazing people also cosplaying as D.Va on the day. It was just so much fun to meet other people who have the love for the same character that I do. And here's a pop vinyl I bought too, just to show you the character and how the dress matches the character as well. So there you have it, my ramblings for nearly 12 minutes. Thanks so much for watching, guys. Like, comment, subscribe, you know the drill. And I'll catch you all next time. Bye!